Hello, this is the Lord's Legion, and welcome to another countdown. And since I've recently reached over 1,000 subscribers, as well as reaching to my 50th character impression, I want to do something a little special and look back upon some of my favourite character impressions. And I have to narrow it down to the 10 impressions that I've done that I am most proud with. And the way I'm going to look at these impressions are going to be by two factors: A, how accurate they were, and B, how fun they were while doing the impressions. And if you're interested with any of the impressions on this list, I will link all the impressions down in the description down below. And one more thing to boot is that for my 50th impression, it will be a volume 2 with one of these characters. And before you think that's going to be my number 1, think again. So without further ado, let's begin with the countdown. So kicking up at number 10, we have the character impression of Jigsaw. So as of right now, Jigsaw is the only horror icon that I have ever done a character impression of, and will most likely not be the last. Now as I was doing the impression for Jigsaw, I had a ton of fun with this character. However, he's at the bottom of the list for two reasons. First of all, his lines were a little too long to do, so it was a little draining after a while. And secondly, looking back at it, it seems a little too easy and anyone could make a Jigsaw impression. And although it sounds like terrible quality from the mic, it does kinda add due to the fact that Jigsaw is usually within a monitor. But nevertheless, I think that my Jigsaw impression was rather decent.
Hello, Jeff. If you're listening to this, that means that the confrontation you so long dreamed of is finally unfolding. In your head, here's a cipher, a symbol of your life changing, a symbol of death. I present him to you now as a simple human being.
So coming in at number 9, we have the CW face of Zoom. And I'm not gonna lie, Zoom was a huge pain in the ass to record, because this entire time I had to keep doing that growly voice and constantly have to do this voice and do constant retakes, and at the end of it all, my voice was being a bitch. But after listening to the final product, I think it was all worth it. And it was pretty hard to mimic the exact voice for Zoom, but I think that I made a pretty interesting take on the character's voice. The only problem that I had with this impression is the fact that when you actually watch it at normal speed, my Zoom impression seems a little slow for some reason. So if you want to hear my Zoom impression, then I would recommend that you speed up the video a little bit by using the YouTube speed setting.
My flesh, you two weren't fast enough.
So coming in at number 8, we have the character impression for Carnage. Now I don't know if it's purely because that I'm a huge Carnage fanboy, but doing the Carnage impression was one of the most fun I've ever had in doing these impressions. Now I'm not gonna lie, doing the Carnage impression was rather difficult because I didn't know what kind of Carnage I wanted to do, whether it would be the more retro version or the more modern take. But at the end of the day, I wanted to make it my own and have an amalgamation of both the classic and modern Carnage. And out of all the impressions that I've ever done, Carnage is one of the most viewed as well as one of the most popular that I've ever done, so I guess it's worth it in the end.
Said anything about killing you? I just have to rip out your ribcage, lungs and spleen so I can get at my baby. You're welcome to what's left.
So coming in at number 7, we have the character impression for the Iron Giant. Now the Iron Giant may be one of the most simplest impressions that I've ever done, but in some cases simple could mean better. And in my opinion, the character impression that I've done for the Iron Giant is the perfect example of this. To me, the Iron Giant was a breath of fresh air, and to me doing the Iron Giant's impression was fun, but in a different way. The Iron Giant's voice is meant to be slow, calm, and comforting. The majority of the impressions beforehand have often been villains, so it was a nice breath of fresh air to do a character who isn't a villain. And it's even more of a breath of fresh air to do a character who is depicted as an innocent and peaceful character for the most part. So for number 6, we have the character impression of Darth Vader. Now the only reason why I did Darth Vader in the first place was purely because I wanted to have it out for May the 4th. And also, I really wanted to pump out a Star Wars character impression at the time. And despite how I picked the most cliche character in doing a character impression for, I think it actually worked in the long run. And I feel like I did mimic the original voice for Darth Vader rather well, but at the same time try and make it as my own. And although at first I was somewhat reluctant to doing Darth Vader because of how cliche of a choice he was, but as I was doing the impression I had a ton of fun with doing Darth Vader's voice. And ultimately I don't regret doing his impression in the fucking slightest.
Impressive. Most impressive. Obi-Wan has taught you well. You have controlled your fear. Now release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me.
Coming in at number 5 we have the character impression of Doctor Doom. Now Doctor Doom was my very first impression that I've ever done, so chances are I might be a little biased when it comes down to this one. However, I still think that it really does hold up to this day. And without doing the Doctor Doom character impression, then I don't think I would have got open to making other character impressions for like over a year at this point. And when it came down to tackling Doctor Doom's voice, I wanted to do the Lex Lang interpretation. Because in my mind, Lex Lang does the very best Doctor Doom impression I have ever heard, and whenever I hear him take on Doctor Doom, I feel like that he is legitimately Doctor Doom, and I wanted to do my own take on the character while at the same time borrowing inspiration from Lex Lang's voice.
Miss Van Dyne, I am not some common criminal that can be distracted by your prattling. You are nothing to Doom, and your pathetic attempts to play mind games with me amount to exactly less than nothing. So please, stop embarrassing yourself.
So coming in at number 4 we have a tiebreaker between both versions of Ultron, of course being the character impression for the comic book version as well as the MCU's interpretation of the character. Now starting off with the classic version of Ultron, it was very fun to do a character who is completely empty from emotions. And because there were so many Ultron voices over the years, I wanted to do the amalgamation between both Earth's Mightiest Heroes as well as the next Avengers animated film. On the other side of the spectrum, we have the MCU's version of Ultron, who I treated as his very own character. Because when you really think about it, this version of Ultron has a lot more personality than the original Ultron. And to me it was fun doing this version of Ultron in particular because I could do pretty much the classic Ultron but at the same time add more personality and more sarcasm within his voice. And honestly I just couldn't pick one without the other, so that's why I have to have a tiebreaker between these two.
Ultron 6, a cybernetic intelligence created by Dr. Henry Pym. My imperative is to bring peace and order to this world. I am about to fulfill that imperative, for the extinction of humanity begins now.
What? I'm not! You think I'm one of Stark's puppets, his hollow men? I mean, look at me, do I look like Iron Man? Stark is nothing! I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm sure that's going to be okay. I'm sorry, it's just I don't understand. Don't compare me to Stark, he's a sickness!
So coming in at number 3 we have the character impression of the Scarecrow, specifically the Arkhamverse version. Now admittedly some of the impressions on this list already are better than this one, but in my opinion the Scarecrow impression has a place in my heart because it's probably the first impression that I was ever like, holy shit, this was a really good impression. And although the Doctor Doom impression was the one that got me started, the Scarecrow impression was the one that made me even more motivated in doing more characters. And although this one is a little low quality, I think it kinda adds because this is meant to be the Scarecrow's voice whenever someone is infected with the fear toxins. And honestly the voice effects really do add into the terror and the nightmarish feel of the character.
Gotham, this is your only warning. Abandon this city, or I will unleash your greatest fears. Tonight, Gotham falls. A city of fear rises.
So for the runner-up, we have the character impression for Mewtwo. One of the many video game characters that I've done an impression of, as well as technically being the only ever anime character that I've ever done an impression of. However, I'm still open in doing more anime characters in the near future. But back to Mewtwo anyway. Mewtwo has one of these powerful voices who has such a dominant presence. but underneath all that he is a softie as well as sympathetic. So it was very interesting for me to tackle both sides of Mewtwo as well as combining the two in certain areas. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I did a pretty good job, and this is probably one of my most proud impressions that I've ever done. Hence why he is at number 2.
Humans, you have served my purpose. I'm sparing your lives for the moment, but you cannot escape your fate. The hour of my vengeance draws near. Behold! With Pokemon and humans eliminated, the clones shall inherit the world.
And finally, for number 1, we have the character impression for Ghost Rider. Now, when I initially did the Ghost Rider impression, I thought that he was a pretty decent impression, and I had a ton of fun with him. But when I looked back on all the impressions and I came across the Ghost Rider impression, I was like, holy shit. Because honestly, I didn't realize how much I nailed the Ghost Rider impression until that point. And not only was the Ghost Rider impression rather faithful, but I had so much fun doing the voice as well. And honestly, it shocked me so much when it kind of slipped under my radar, only for me to kind of come back and revisit it, only to be so mind blown on how well it actually turned out. And for these reasons, this is why I have to put my character impression for the Ghost Rider as my number 1.
You know nothing of hell, mutant. Now gather your strength, because tonight I am going to show you how to kill a demon. Even gods must answer for their sins. Too often do you invoke demons in your spells. It stops now.
So this pretty much concludes the countdown list. Which is your favourite impression out of all the listed? Comment below and share some thoughts. And if you want to hear more from the impressions, then they will be linked in the description down below. And if you want even more impressions, then they're going to be in a playlist that I have specifically for the character impressions, where I have nearly 50 of those. And remember, to celebrate my 50th impression, it's going to be one of these guys listed in this video. So as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Take care and have a good one.